Hello guys, it's Randall with BitRage. So I want to do an update here on Bitcoin where it is sitting right now, and I also wanted to share with you a little bit about MACD and a little bit more about RSI hopefully here, because I know a lot of you have really asked about indicators. So I wanted to share a little bit. We are going to do in-depth videos on these, but that's going to come later on here, probably after we kind of get out of this Bitcoin downtrend. Mainly because we don't really recommend you get started trading in an atmosphere like this. It's just really not a good environment. You can really lose money really quickly. Even if you're above amateur level, like you've gotten in and you started making some money, this is a really bad environment and can really just go south really quickly. So we're probably going to do that as the market kind of makes its way back up, because it'll be more beneficial for you. But I want to share some things so you can watch, can keep track of Bitcoin, what's going on. So not much has really happened over the weekend here since we talked on Friday. So we've just kind of been bouncing around here. And I want to show you, I drew a box before and I think everyone kind of liked my little box. So let's draw a box here again. Let's draw a pretty little box. All right. So what do I base this box on? Is it arbitrary? Because you might see someone else draw a box and it might be different than my box. And that's fine. But here's my reasoning behind my box. So we have a what used to be support, it's now resistance because we broke through, but we have a support position here. We have a support areas here, which are not very strong, but they're support. You have resistance here. Okay, so that's kind of the boundaries of my box. But you also have something interesting. You may have noticed these lines and wondered what these lines are. First of all, you know what this line is, right? This is my trend line. I've used that in previous videos. And we're actually riding this trend line. We're literally riding this trend line right now. We pushed up above it, and then immediately, like within hours, we are dropping below it. Now we're just kind of riding it. We're just riding it down, which is kind of interesting. So if we keep riding that trend down, we're headed back to 6,000 just by riding the trend line, but that's not likely to happen that way. So you have that. Then I have our moving averages. So I have the 100-day EMA, I have the 50-day EMA, and then I have the 50-day simple moving average. So the EMAs are exponential moving averages, which push more effort on more recent pricing activity, okay? And the simple moving average obviously doesn't. So you might have somebody put a couple of these up. Each of these represents resistance. So each of these EMAs, your MA, your trend line, your resistance areas, this is all resistance. So when you put this together, you see you have a huge resistance pack here. This is a huge resistance box, and that's why I drew a box before, because this is literally a huge resistance box. Now somebody might say, yeah, I understand that, but we're close. All we have to do is break through this, and then we are golden. Well, not so fast. Zoom out a little bit here. So we break out of this area, which has been a huge issue right here, okay? We broke, see, on the 9th, late on the 9th, we broke up into 9,000, and literally, immediately, we dropped back down below 9,000 and into 8,000 again. We just really could not break through that resistance. Now, why is that? Well, let's look at something here. You can always, if you really pay attention to your charts, history really does repeat itself, and support and resistance do not lie. So we come back here, back from the 17th, we have this support level, which again means what? Broken support means resistance. That became resistance. Look how clear that line is. It literally hit perfectly. I mean, let's see, the low on this was 9,005. The high on this was 9,090. Look how close that is. So this is so close. And when you see this, it should tell you support and resistance can really be a huge predictor. So if you were watching this, When we got to this point, before we hit that, you should have been saying, listen, we're starting to break down here. What's going on? You look back and you see this resistance and say, okay, there's a good chance we're going to hit 9,000 and we're going to bounce off it. And that's exactly what happened. Now, that's what I had predicted before, was somewhere in the 9,000 range we were going to bounce off it. Now, I think what I was trying to explain was, okay, so people say all we have to do is break out of this area into 9,000, 10,000, and we're golden. Is that true? No, it isn't true. So we have this resistance box, this small resistance box, which has been huge for us. Look at this area. We have to break through all this, which has become heavy resistance. All right, we have this whole area is heavy resistance. This whole consolidation period is heavy resistance. You have even back here, this used to be support. It is now heavy resistance. So it's not as easy as just breaking out of this box and then we're golden, we're good to go. As I mentioned before, even if we hit up into, which it's between 10,500 and 11,500, if we were to hit one of those areas, we would still come back. Somewhere we would come back and retest support because we do not have support. We do not have buyers on board on this thing. So it's got to happen still. It's inevitable. So keep looking at the support, keep looking at the resistance, keep checking the volume. Volume is still low. I keep hearing people say volume is up. I don't know what you people are talking about. Volume is not up. Volume is not up, guys. Listen, I've been watching volume every single day. All through the day, volume is not up. So if someone wants to tell me volume is up, I would love for you to actually show me where volume is up, because just looking at the chart, it's not up. And I have multiple services I use, and none of them are showing volume is up. So volume is not up. All right, so I want to quickly show you some things with RSI and divergence. May not even get into divergence, but we're going to do a little bit on RSI on MACD. I want to cover just simple here, nothing too complex. We're going to get into more complex trading soon when the market kind of stabilizes here, because I do not really want to start doing extensive trading videos until the market gets better, because it's not a good time for beginners to get into trading. It's not. You're going to lose a lot of money. I just want to be honest with you on that. So let's look at the RSI and the MACD. So a couple things for RSI you can pick out that tell you their confirmation, really. So you look at your chart, you find your support, you find your resistance, you look at the volume, you look at the Japanese candlesticks, and you learn to read each of these. You learn to find the spinning tops, you learn to find the engulfing candles and the dojis, and you'll learn all that stuff, and we're going to do videos on it, so don't worry, it's coming soon. But you'll learn all that stuff. Then you find a position which looks good, and you look for confirmation on RSI or MACD. That's what these are for. These are not to find a position and then look for confirmation here. That's backwards, and you're going to get yourself hurt if you do that. So some interesting things to look at with RSI. Below the 30 line here is oversold, and when you start getting into oversold, and the farther you dig down into oversold, the higher the indication is that you're going to rebound into a bullish trend upward. Now that doesn't mean that you're going to the moon, but it does mean that most likely you're going to see a push upward. So let's look at these. So we have two patterns here. You have this pattern, and interestingly enough, they form W's. That doesn't always happen, but it's kind of interesting. So we're in oversold. It's an indicator that we should expect to see it bounce back a little bit. So we get down to 5,800 approximately, and it does. It bounces back, and we see a small uptrend. Now go back a little bit. We see this one, almost just identical. I mean, they're very, very, very close. Now, why in the world would this one only go up to here, but this one goes all the way up to here? Why? They're at the same level. In the oversold, they would seem to be saying the same thing, and this is why it's so important you learn to read charts and not just indicators. Indicators are confirmation of charts. That's so crucial. Here's what I want you to see. So why did this RSI prediction, which seems identical to this one, shows so much more improvement over this one. Which basically, if you'd bought in here, there's a very good chance you wouldn't have gotten out in time. You would have either broken even or lost money, because it just happened really fast, and you would have expected it to go up farther than that probably, especially if you were seeing this as a bullish indicator. So you notice that I drew this resistance line from here. Now look at this. Okay, that's not working. Let's try that again. There we go. So if you use shift, it's supposed to make the line straight. It's supposed to conform line straight across. So you hit shift and it just drops it down. All right, so let's see this resistance. It drives right through this previous support and previous resistance area, but now it is just a huge resistance area. Again, this is back in November 30th. All right, this whole area, it's in November, but that is clearly a previous support line, which has now become resistance. So then when you come over here and you're saying, well, why in the world did it only go up that far? Well, it hit heavy resistance. That's the edge of my box. So my box is pretty cool, right? So it hit heavy resistance and it couldn't go any farther because of the resistance. So it dropped down. On the contrary, with this one, it was able to go up farther before it hit heavy resistance and was forced to be pushed back. So I know I've harped on the support and resistance over and over and over and over, but I do that because so many people, I'll see people on TradingView and they'll be like, the MACD says this, and I'm seeing the head and shoulders pattern and whatever. But I don't care what pattern you see. If you're not paying attention to volume, if you're not paying attention to support and resistance, you're going to find yourself in a position where you're going to be wrong more often than you're right. You might make it right once in a while, but you're missing the big picture, and the big picture is volume, which is supply and demand essentially, and support and resistance, where you have this battle between buyers and sellers to determine whether you're going to go up or down. It's really that simple. So when you're looking at RSI, you shouldn't be just looking at RSI and saying, okay, we're an oversold, I'm buying. You should be looking at it and saying, okay, what's happening in the candlesticks? What's happening with the support and resistance? And then you say, okay, listen, we got a area right here, which is probably going to be resistance soon. We're not quite there, but it's probably going to be. This is resistance. That is a resistance area. This whole area is resistance. So we have a number of areas from the past that have become resistance that are going to push us back. And that tells us a lot about what is going on with our chart, and it can help us from making dumb decisions with the RSI and getting into a bad issue. Alright guys, so I actually recorded the earlier part of this video earlier in the day. I was intending to upload it much earlier today, but I had a meeting that came up on me quickly and I had to deal with that, so it got pushed back. So if you notice a little difference maybe in this last candle here in the chart, that's the reason. It's not that big. It's not like we lost a day here, but the video did get pushed back, so I am sorry for that, but that's how life goes. So I gave you a little bit on RSI. I'm not really going to do any more on RSI today. We will have more videos on that soon. I want to quickly touch on MACD and then mention two other things if I remember them when I finish, and then we will close this out. So we're going to be very simple here. We're not digging deep again, but if you don't understand MACD, hopefully this will give you an overview and then you can learn from there. So we basically have in the MACD, we have our histogram. All right, now everyone probably pretty much knows what a histogram is. And then we have a red and blue line, and our red line is our signal line, and our blue line is our MACD line. So a signal line, as it would tend to insinuate by the name, would tend to give us signals. All right, fair enough. One of the signals that we can look for is when you have this red line crossing under or over, however you want to look at it, the blue line, your MACD line. So you have your signal line crossing over the blue line here. It is an indication to buy. Now, we've gone over before that you don't use indicators alone. You set up your chart, you find buying opportunities, preferably based on support and resistance, because that's the safest way to trade. And honestly, if you're trading support and resistance, you're going to win most of your trades. Even at an amateur level, you can do really well if you just really pay attention. So we're looking at this and we're seeing this as a potential opportunity to buy because it's cross under. And what that is called is a bullish cross. Now the inverse is also true. So we have our red line here, which is our signal line crossing over our MACD line, our blue line, which is indicating we should probably think about selling. And if you look at our chart and compare it, let's do a cross here. So it's a bearish cross. You look at the chart, it was a time to sell. We should have been selling. Now if you look down here, it's giving us another indicator. It's crossed over again. It's telling us we should probably consider buying. Now it does go up, but it doesn't go up that far. Now, if you remember back in this video, just a few minutes back, we looked at RSI. We compared two RSI indications that seemed similar, but we found out that the reason this one didn't make up as far is a huge resistance, whereas this one could make it up to that same resistance point. So it was able to basically come pretty close to, not quite up there, but pretty close to this line. So it was shy of a few $100s. Now take that information on the RSI and apply it to the MACD. So we have the indication to potentially buy, but if we'd been paying attention to support and resistance, we might say, can it break through that? Is this a big resistance? Is this going to be a big issue for it? So that can be one thing that we can look at. And quite honestly, and I know some people would disagree with this, but I don't really care. You can find market structure in your MACD as well. Alright, now I know someone's going to say, okay, you could have got a W on that as well. It's true, and you have to be careful how far you push this, but that is an M. And again, we're not just taking this saying, okay, it's an M, it's going down to the ground. No, but if you can look at that and say, okay, is there things that validate this? And so it's interesting. I draw on my charts. I draw. I figure out things, I set things up, I draw, and I come back in a few hours and I'll place trades, and usually it's very close. Usually it's very close to what I'm predicting. So we get up to this point. This is what I really want you to focus on right now. So what was our last point? It was a buy signal, right? So we have the red crossing over the blue. It's a buy signal. Let me see. I don't really like... There, that's better. So we put it in this area. So if we had anticipated that, we could have bought in anywhere between 64.67 and 74.42. So we would hopefully got in there on the early end. And it went all the way up to, let's see, 9,000. That was actually our high point there. So we could have made a decent profit just based on MACD. Now we wouldn't have made a decision just on MACD, but we would have found that on MACD. RSI is also pointing to the same thing, telling us it's a good time to potentially buy. It's also interesting too that the difference between this buy signal on the MACD and this one on the MACD, you can notice that there is a difference. There is a wider gap there. Okay, so that was our last buy signal. But now we have it crossing back over. We have a bearish cross. Now it does look like we're coming really close here to maybe crossing over again. But at the moment we are in a bearish cross. And I don't want you to take that and run with it. I don't want you to take that and say that I'm saying that means we're going down because of that, but we've discussed a ton of stuff over the past couple of days on why we really have to retest support levels. So when we have that foundation, we can add this in as just a confirmation of that. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it does add a confirmation. It adds a level of validity to our belief, what we are assuming is most likely to happen. So you have this bearish cross, and we would anticipate it because you can anticipate that it's coming close. It's gonna meet in this area, and you'll notice that it has dropped off here. It's more of a consolidation rather than an actual bearish run at the moment, but that's what MACD is telling us. Now I want to go back here and look at a few other ones. So we have a buy signal there, and we look here, and let's see, we would have anticipated it there, so we could have bought in 11,200 around there. We could have sold at 12,900 or 12,800. We could have made a profit. It's not a huge run, but we could have definitely made a profit on that. But it's interesting. You can see this is an indicator in MACD. We had an indicator back here earlier from RSI, which was considerably low. It was running in on 15, which is low. It's low in the over sold, which is indicating that we should be heading up. So we had this indicator. Then we had an engulfing candle. Notice that nice, beautiful engulfing candle. And several candles later, we have a red candle, which some people would take as, oh, we're going back down, which is engulfing. But we have confirmation in the MACD that we still should expect to be heading up. So even if we bought here, we still could have made a little bit of profit. Not a ton, but we could have still made a little bit of profit. So when you see RSI, and then you see confirmation in MACD, and we have the engulfing candle, we see this downtrend, we see these wicks pushing down, trying to push farther, but they can't. So they're pushing down, and basically the buyers are coming in at this point. So that gives us a lot to work on. So we could, if we were trading this chart, and just the ups and the downs, you know, the dips, we could have traded those, right? And we could have done okay with that. Let's look at a couple others. So we have an indication. Let's actually look here. So we have an indication right there again that is telling us to buy. Now it's close together, and we notice for a while there we don't make much progress, but if we bought in at this indication around 13,380 and we rode it up until we see it crossing, because that would be an indication right there. It does go up farther, but we're just looking at the MACD as an indicator right now. We could have made some profit. Definitely could have made some profit on that. So that would have been an okay run. Not the best. We could have waited. And that's the thing, you know, that's MACD is saying that it's gonna go the other direction. They kind of ride each other for a little bit here. Then you look at RSI and see if you can find a divergence, which there really isn't. I'm not seeing a divergence there. So then you would look at your candles and you'd say, okay, so do we have anything that's telling us that we're still gonna head up? And if you can't, then you sell out there, and that's fine. It's better to make a profit here than to wait here and lose a profit somewhere down here, right? All right, so let's look at a couple more here, and then we will stop on this end. All right, so we have a signal there coming in. We're anticipating this signal, the crossover, the bearish cross, which is telling us that we should sell. And that's a beautiful point to sell at, honestly. I mean, I know that we probably would have sold before because, again, it crossed over here. But assuming you saw something in the candles that you want to stay in and you sold up here, that would be a beautiful area to sell. It's the best area you could get. So it would have been a good signal. So now, can MACD be wrong? Can we do a crossover and it be wrong? Absolutely. Any of your indicators can be wrong. It's totally possible. That's why we don't trade with indicators. We use them as confirmation. I've mentioned this before, you need 2 to 3 reasons to make a trade. And when you have 2 to 3 reasons to make a trade, it is generally a good trade. So I find my point on my chart, I find my reasons in my chart without anything else, right? Now you might use trend lines or something like that. You're going to use support and resistance, that's fine, but not anything else. So then I find my position, I add RSI and I add MACD, and then if I have confirmation from both of those, it seems like a very good trade to me. And honestly, when I make a decision to trade based on my chart and I find confirmation in RSI and MACD, I never lose a trade. And the reason is because I have convinced myself, based on my research of the chart, that it is a good trade. And RSI and MACD just add 2 points of confirmation to that. So it is a good trade. Now I do lose trades sometimes. I'm not saying I never do, but it is uncommon because I really set myself up. I study and I set myself up, so I really do not make as many trades as I could, but I try to make good trades on where I can do really well. So I look for the support and resistance levels and I try to find the bottom. I try to find the drop off and I try and get in as low as I can. So that's one way to use MACD. There are other things we can learn from our MACD. We can analyze the trend waves. We can analyze patterns, and you can even overlap. Let me show you how to do this because this might be something you might want to fool around with. So we can merge down, so we can overlap RSI and MACD. Now if you're new, this might be a little confusing, but I find some of these things fun, and yeah. So one last thing I wanted to talk about before I close this video, and that is, you guessed it, volume. Now, maybe you're sick of hearing me harp on volume, and maybe you're sick of hearing me harp on support and resistance, but if you want to know what moves a chart, that's what moves a chart. The MACD doesn't move a chart, RSI doesn't move a chart, EMA doesn't move a chart. Those are all based on what has happened in the past. What moves a chart is volume and support and resistance. It's volume and supply and demand. That's what moves a chart. Buyers and sellers. So if you're not learning that, if you're not understanding that, you're missing that. And honestly, I don't mean to be mean, but a few of you are missing that. We've had a few comments that clearly some people are missing. You really have to get rid of all your emotions in this place. It is more important that I read the chart and let it tell me what's going on. And if at the end of the day I don't get the best possible buy-in, I'm fine with that. So just briefly, I know I've been talking about the volume. Volume dropped off significantly this afternoon. I was actually watching it, and it dropped from, depending on where you look, between 23 and 26,000 down to about 16,000. It has picked up a little bit. It's kind of vacillating between 16 and 17 as I record this video. Now, what does that really mean? Well, it means that it's considerably down. I would consider that about 10% of where it should be. And to the people who keep saying we're in a bull run, you can't be in a bull run with that kind of volume. I'm just really sorry to burst your bubble. It's not possible. So what we are looking to see tomorrow happen, and I really think it is possible, is for the volume to pick up. But no matter what happens tomorrow, whether we do see a little spike, I want you to really understand that right now, buyers are not supporting this level at all. Buyers are not supporting it at all. If we make it up to 10,000 or 11,000 tomorrow or over the next couple days, you need to keep that in mind, because here is my prediction on what is going to happen if we make it there. So if over the next couple days we make it into the 10 and 11,000 range, anywhere in that range, this is my prediction. We are going to see huge sell-off. Now, I want you to think about something. Think about this very carefully. If buyers are not supporting this level and we climb up to here and we have a huge sell-off, which I really believe is going to happen. All the people who bought in anywhere in this area are going to sell there. Not all of them, but a lot of them. If buyers didn't support this level, and they're not, buyers are not supporting this, why in the heck would they support a level up here? The only reason why they would support a level up here is FOMO. It's if we could push to a higher level really rapidly with a lot of volume, indicating a huge bullish trend. And when I say huge, I literally mean huge. I'm saying we really need to push above 12,500. Now again, I could be wrong. I could be wrong and I could miss something somewhere, but I'm betting myself on this as far as my money, what I'm investing on this analysis, and I believe it with all my heart. Because like I said before, volume is important and support and resistance do not lie. We have so much resistance to break through and so little buyer support that to get up there we really, really would need some miracle. And honestly guys, if we do make it into the 11,000 range, we're going to see a huge sell-off and most likely a drop-off. And probably the higher we can actually make it, the further down we are going to come when we come down. That's just most likely just because of how these things work. But how confident am I that we're still coming back to 6,000? I'm still confident. I still believe it. Nothing. I have not yet, to this date, since I did the original video, since Joe did his video on February 2nd, I have not seen any evidence that would indicate we are not going to retest 6,000. I haven't seen the evidence. I don't believe it. I believe that we have to come down and retest it. I really, really, really believe that is our next step. And I believe it is soon. If we come up here, I think this is going to be a fast movement. And we are going to come back down. If we come up here or here, but we could also just drop off right from here. And if we drop off right from here, there's a decent chance we might be able to just get off with a small bounce, set up our support, and see the buyers come in. That would be the perfect scenario. And then we could go up from that point. That would be the perfect scenario. If we go up any farther, or if we keep trying to break through that resistance and we keep failing, it's just going to weaken the bulls and weaken them to the point that when we actually drop back down to test support, the chances of us breaking through that support of 6,000 become higher and higher, just because of how this works. And the lower the amount of volume, if we keep losing volume, that is not a good thing for bulls. It's not a good thing whatsoever. So any price movement we see at this level of volume is just really, really horribly volatile, and I would not trust it at all. So be careful trading, guys. I just really want you to have facts. I really want you to base your decisions on logical analysis and not on emotions, not on nonsense, just really hard fact. I know that it looks like this is basically saying anything can happen, but it's not. It's not. It's basically saying one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to go up, or we're going to break through resistance in the 9,000 range, which we really have to break through 9,000 tonight. We'd have tonight or tomorrow. We'd have to break through 9,000 tonight or tomorrow, in my opinion. So we'd have to break through that, and then we'd have to break into 10,000. So that's one option. And most likely, we'd break down between 10,000 and 11,000, and we'd drop off. The other option is that we soon, within the next day or two, start seeing a real bearish haul downwards, and hopefully retest 6,000 and then go back up. That is what I'm looking for. But no matter which of these things happen, the end goal, the end result has to be we see volume coming in, we see an establishment of support. Again, support means a level at which the buyers are convicted. The buyers are convicted that this is a real point at which we need to get in on, and we're going to see a rush of buyers supporting it. So over the next 2 to 3 days should be interesting, guys. Tomorrow should be interesting. I really think we're going to see some movements tomorrow, especially since the weekend was so dead. I really think that we should be seeing something. And it should be interesting. Just don't get carried away with emotion. Don't buy on emotion. Don't buy on impulse. Don't buy what you can't afford. I hope you learned some things. And please comment below and tell me what you think of the video, what you think of my analysis, and what you've been looking at. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for your patience and waiting for the video. But I did want to get this out to you tonight because I know some of you have been really looking forward to it. And we will probably have another analysis tomorrow. We'll see how the day goes, see how the trading goes, and I will talk to you then. If this is the first time you are watching one of our videos, please hit that subscribe button and make sure that you are hitting the bell so you're notified as soon as we drop a new video. We will be doing a lot more videos on Bitcoin, on trading, on this trend, and you won't want to miss those. Please hit the like button to let us know that you appreciated the video and that it was a benefit to you. And if you have suggestions for future videos or something you really want explained better, comment below and let us know. And we will do our best to get a video out to you on that subject. Thanks, guys, and take care.